here too. Yeah, yeah. We are here too. Yeah, yeah. You done being mainstream? Move aside, it's our turn.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
It's working on my phone, not on my computer. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, okay, so you have switched on your phone, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm on my phone, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was wondering because I never tried to get on a Instagram live through the desktop. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with the live session. And firstly, I would like to say it's a pleasure to have you here because I've read your stories for the magazine and even for the prompt. And I would say, I loved all of them, all that you have sent. Incredible storyline, incredible characters, incredible narration. Everything was so good, so good. So yes, like for me, it was like if there are live sessions that are about to happen, you have to be here. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
That's
So
very flattering.
you may, yeah. So you may introduce yourself now if you want to.
Okay. Well, I'm Amanda King. I write under AK King. I'm a Canadian author from Southern Alberta, and I write dark urban fantasy. And if you like happy endings, don't read my stuff because I'm all about the weird, twisted, ambiguous, make you think kind of endings. So.
But I guess if people start reading your stories, I feel that they would fall in love with the kind of endings that you give to your stories, right? So they will be like, let's keep it this way. Let's not have happy endings every time. So yeah.
I sometimes find happy endings are they get boring after a while. If you can always count on a happy ending, it's like what it could have gone so much is such a different way,
Yeah. I understand because even in reality, if you see that even in real life, right, that you don't always have a happy ending. Some endings are tragic. Some endings are you might not be in favor of the way the things take place. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
All right. So shall we begin with stories or? Would you like to discuss more about the kind of stories that you write? Because if you have the time, we are open to more discussions.
Okay. Well, I've got a little bit of time here, and I'm not sure how long we want to wait for people to sign on or not. But if you've got questions, I'm happy to answer them. So.
Okay, so I'll ask just one question. I guess that might, sum up the whole thing. So the question for you from me is that the kind of stories that you write. So how long has it been that this has been your genre of writing, and what made you curious to write such stories like with such storyline and such characters, everything. Just I want to know the summary of your stories in short.
Okay. This has been my genre since I started writing my own fiction. And I started taking this seriously about 2017, 2018, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And I think what drew me to it, I enjoy a lot of the dark urban fantasy that's out there, but a lot of it has a really heavy romance element to it, and I enjoy that as a reader. I'm not into it as a writer. I'm not quite into horror. I generally don't like going into that, but I like elements of it. So I kind of found my way in this in between, pretty naturally. I write the stories that I want to read, but have had trouble finding.
That was an interesting answer, I would say. Like, that was a superb. This can be, a good tagline, punchline, or whatever you want to say. Yeah, because it was a really good answer that you want to write stories that you want to read, and that should apply to basically every writer, every poet, every literally every person that do the thing that you want to see, right? So that makes sense in a lot of ways, actually.
Thank you. Yeah. My little vacuum just kicked in, so if it starts picking up, just let me know and I'll run off and pause it.
Okay, not a problem.
But yeah, did you have any other questions that you'd like me to answer?
Maybe after you read like couple of stories, because right now I just want to hear your stories on live, because I've never heard you. I've read you obviously, but I've never heard you, so I want to do that now.
Alrighty. Well, I was gonna read Love Lost. I just finished just this morning. I finished the final touches on another story that was inspired by this one. That's going to be coming out in the expanded edition of the short story collection at the end of August.
Yes.
So it seemed like an appropriate time.
Sure.
Okay. Love Lost. Tyson, where have you been? He took his time hanging his jacket in the front closet. Sorry, dear. I had to work late. You could have called, Stacy pouted, hands on her hips. Your dinner is cold. He placed a gentle kiss on her forehead as he moved past her into the house. That's fine. He didn't care about dinner any more than he cared about the simpering bitch who made it. Stacy wasn't the one. He pulled the plate out of the fridge and put it in the microwave, ignoring the accusing look on her face when she followed him into the kitchen. You smell like flowers. He shrugged in response. She could think what she wanted. She didn't understand the regret he lived with and would take offense if he told her the truth, that she was a convenience, a stand-in for the only one who had ever made him feel anything. It was his own fault his one true love was lost to him, forever. He'd been young, drunk. He hadn't meant to hurt her, not at first. But she'd been so understanding. She'd known he hadn't meant it, and she'd forgiven him, the first time. But something insidious had reared its head in his heart. He'd hurt her again, deliberately, if not maliciously, just to see how far he could push her. Pure curiosity. A slap here, a cruel comment there. He knew it was despicable, but his curiosity had been insatiable. Who is she? Stacy demanded, eyes brimming with tears. No one of consequence, he lied dismissively. She's gone. Stacy was perfect for his current needs. The doormat accepted his assurance with no further complaint, leaving the room to shed her tears elsewhere and allowing him to savor his misery alone. He had known his first love was perfect at the time, but failed to understand what it meant until it was too late. After she was gone, he'd spent years trying to recreate the thrill, the fascination. But the endless string of strangers left him hollow inside. No matter what horrors he inflicted, none of them could compare to her. They rotted away in unmarked graves. He didn't remember their names or even their faces. Stacy was fortunate. She would never meet their fate. He was too numb inside now to bother, and she did make his life easier. But his first true love would torment him as long as he lived. He could never get her back, undo what he'd done. All he could do was tend her grave, hidden deep in the woods, and give in to his regret for a brief time before he returned to the task of functioning in society. She would never see the flowers he left her, and if she could, she would sneer at him, mocking his sincerest apologies.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's like I don't have words because I've already told you much about the story that you write, right? So, I was just, listening to it in the flow, and, it was all good. But the next one that I want you to read is the other story which, apart from that broken limb story, which was the third one that you submitted?
The third one was Beasts and Beatings.
Yeah, this one. So this one, after you finish reading, I'll tell you what fascinated me the most about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Beasts and Beatings. Daniel peeked at the clock and stirred sugar into his evening coffee. 20 minutes of peace before she's home from work, he thought, walking back down the hall to his office. At his desk, he settled back in his chair, closing his eyes to try and remember the good times. They all seemed tainted now. The shiner she'd given him last night throbbed faintly, complicating his positive thinking exercise. He glanced over at the charming woman smiling at him from their wedding photo beside his desk. Taken 2 years ago, no hint of what was to come shadowed her features. Denying his shame and anger wasn't getting any easier, and his passive resolve only seemed to escalate her violence. He sighed, briefly entertaining an unwanted fantasy about how a simple backhand might paint a spray of her blood across the wall. She was a tiny thing, and he stayed fit. He could do a lot more damage than her for the same effort. No, he thought, pushing the image from his mind once more. It wasn't right to hit a woman, even if her own temper extended to his face through her 10-pound purse. Trying to remember the sweet girl he'd married aggravated the angry beast caged in the recesses of his mind. The harder he ignored it, the louder it raged about double standards and socially acceptable misandry. He knew she could and would pin her aggression as his fault if he were to file a complaint. She knew how to manipulate the system. Caught up in his brooding, Daniel didn't hear the front door slam. "The girls and I are going clubbing tonight." Daniel started and cautiously eyed his young, beautiful wife leaning against the doorframe. "Did you hear me, dumbass? I'm going out tonight. You'd better be up when I call for a ride home." "You barely got to work on time this morning. You really think you should be going out again?" She scowled. "I'm a free woman, Daniel. I decide what to do, not you." She slammed the door in his face, causing dust to trickle down from the ceiling. Daniel resumed his brooding. He missed playing baseball. He'd tried the "I got in a bar fight" excuse with his buddies once. They knew him too well to buy it. And he didn't want to listen to their talk of pressing charges. Nice guys roll with the punches, right? But why bother being a textbook nice guy when all he had to show for it were his bruises and total isolation? He stewed until he heard her leave again, then left the relative sanctuary of his office for bed, thinking, let her find her own way home for once, soothed his anger as he drifted into sleep. He awoke to pain and screaming. "You bastard!" Thwack! "How dare you embarrass me like that!" Thwack! I had to take a cab. A cab! She loomed over him, his baseball bat poised for another swing. The beast burst into action before Daniel fully comprehended the situation. It roared at the pain shooting through his arm, flung his body from the bed, and seized the bat from her inebriated grasp. For the first and last time, she witnessed the raw, primitive strength of her mate. She trembled at the fury in his eyes, but the beast did not pause. It simply swung the weapon, with perfect form, through her skull. Satisfied, it calmed and set about cleaning up the body, while Daniel, classic nice guy, retreated to the farthest corner of his mind, inconsolably horrified.
Okay, so now I will say what I wanted to say. So there are a couple of things about the story. So the first thing is when I was reading this story. Okay. So for like 80% of the story, it was going, it was going in a flow, right? Then comes the ending, and literally my expressions were like, "Oh, what?" And I mean, I didn't expect it. I didn't see it coming. Firstly, the ending. And the second thing about the story is the story itself, because, there are a lot of stories where, you see the same monotonous thing being repeated over and over again, like the same storyline. If it's some triggering topic, people tend to write the same thing, just with different words. This felt like, someone actually portraying a real situation, which does happen in real life as well, right? Where there is domestic violence in women, there is also violence on men. And very few stories actually depict the violence on men, as far as I have read. I might be wrong, obviously. But, I've read very few stories where, there are stories where, they depict the actual violence, the actual pain that men actually go through. And this was one of the stories where, as I said, I didn't expect the ending that way. And, it wasn't like I was, I was just surprised, I was just surprised, and it was a kind of thrill for me to read the entire story, because as I said, like not many stories follow such storyline, right? So it wasn't like I was happy that finally a story like this, but in a way that I didn't see it coming absolutely. And the second thing was like, I was just, this is the best I've read till now, straight up. And yeah, these were all sorts of things that went through my mind just for the ending, right? Because the entire story, as you can see, it was just, the female character in your story abusing the guy and all. But the turning of the tables, the flip happened at the very end, and I was like, wow, this is like this is cinema. If you know the meme, I don't know if you do, but yeah. So I mean, this is my favorite. And also the story that you submitted for the magazine, I remember it like not clearly, but I did read the whole thing, and also that was also a fabulous story. But this one was something else.
Well, I'm glad it had that reaction. That was the kind of shock and surprise that I was going for with it. And I really, at least in the circles that I've been traveling, there's been so much vilifying men lately. And yes, there has been domestic violence towards women, and it's a terrible subject, and it's gotten a significant amount of attention.
Yes.
Whereas it happens to men too. And I
Yes.
wanted to give voice to that.
Exactly.
As a woman who sees these things happen and men going, well, I can't do anything. If I say anything, I'm the villain.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
also recognizing that from a physiological standpoint, most men are physiologically stronger than most women. It's just biology.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted at least one story out there giving that other perspective of, because I've seen women just berating their boyfriends, and I've looked at them going, you know what he could do if he lost his temper, right? He's putting up with your bull. So I'm glad it resonated, and it seems to accomplish the goals that I wanted it to do.
Absolutely, because it's like you portrayed everything perfectly. Like the thing that you said, your reaction when a particular woman would do things to men, right? And you are like, what he can do if if he loses the temper. But it's like men, even to defend themselves, can't usually use that particular thing, right? Effectively, like immediately, they have to think twice, maybe 10 times, and then finally take an action against that, even just to defend. I'm not even talking about attacking, just to defend.
Yeah.
So even that was portrayed perfectly through your story, that the guy, the man, you know he held back for a good amount of time before he was finally like, this is over. This is really too much happening, and I need to do something. And
Well,
yeah,
and it wasn't even conscious. It was just the instinct, because
yeah,
out of a dead sleep, like raw
yeah,
instinct, this is what would
yeah.
happen, right? So you take those sensors out, you take that rational mind going, no, I can't do this, take that out of the equation, and it's a totally different situation. So
Yeah. So for what you said right now, you even yourself have included a line for that. That before you could comprehend with the situation, the beast just comes out and smack.
yeah.
And that basically portrays the instinct, right? Because he's just processing the situation, and then it's just you can say just an instinct, just an instant reaction, that it's not a thought that I have to go for it. It just happened. It's just
Yeah.
voluntary that it's the time to react, and that's all.
And he's horrified by it. It's not
Yeah,
something that he wanted to
yeah,
do, but
yeah, exactly.
it happened. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
So
that's why, that's the thing. That's the reason why the entire ending is my favorite, because it just takes you through all the real emotions. I'm not even talking about some fictional characters, some fictional emotions, right? Because in fiction you can write that the guy is happy that he hit the woman because he's finally free now. But these are all real emotions. You hit someone, you have certain emotions running through your senses, and this describes everything that would run through the senses when you attempt a certain action.
yeah, I
So
definitely
yes,
strive for reality in what I do. So
my favorite, like by a mile now, because some pieces I've read about uh, men having to deal with violence, but this was totally class apart, and I mean it, and I'm not even going to deny it. I mean it.
well, thank you.
All right. So, what else shall we do? Are you going to go for the third one, which is broken limbs, or you want to do some discussion regarding riding? Whatever you might like.
I mean, the third one is fairly long.
Yes.
And if people were triggered by the beasts and beatings, they might be also triggered by to mend a broken limb. But it was a very meaningful story for
Yes.
me.
Okay. Just one thing that I want to ask you: is this your first ever live session?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
We are. Yeah.
it's my first live streaming session. I was on a podcast when I first launched the first edition of this short story collection,
Okay.
called Between the Lines with
Okay.
Randy Lacey. So I did do that as well. But what page is it on? 19.
Honestly, ma'am, we are glad that this is your first Instagram live session and it's with us and it's you reading these stories, that are just fabulous. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. Okay. Now, in this one, I gave in to my love of more Victorian writing, so it's a little bit more flowery than some of my other stories.
Sure.
To mend a broken limb. I really am sorry, Mr. Jacoby, but given the circumstances in which your injuries occurred and your demographic, limb amputation procedures simply aren't eligible for coverage under this insurance policy. You may want to try seeking remuneration from your health insurance. Rejected. Again. Alas, none of the humans had any sympathy for the torture of having half one's limbs ripped from one's trunk by hurricane-force winds. I had already consulted my health insurer. The human I spoke with there suggested I seek out an arborist, but was quite clear they would not be able to pay for any services rendered. The very mention of those professional, mutilating mass murderers made my every leaf tremble with revulsion. At least loggers never pretended to love us as they hacked us to pieces. It seemed I was condemned to spend my days belonging nowhere. My root systems were altered beyond recognition by the mad scientists who anthropomorphized me, effectively severing my connection to my kin in order to grant me locomotion. Whatever they did also affected my natural healing processes. Hence, no injury I sustained ever closed over. Navigating the concrete jungle my rescuers left me in was just another bundle of problems. Though surrounded by multitudes of people, my ability to speak had not facilitated any real integration with them. Oh, some had tried. I was welcomed with special dispensations for disabilities and reparations for injustices suffered. But before anyone had thought to ask what I might require to live a real life among them, those that fought so vociferously to land me the rights of every citizen caught wind of a new genetic experiment in China. I was forgotten in favor of a sentient octopus, left to live in urban isolation. Distraught over the latest lack of human assistance, I paused in a park on my way home to give my roots a reprieve from scraping across the harsh concrete of the human cityscape. Sinking them deep into the pliable earth, I tried in vain to commune once more with my brethren, to share my dolour for their plight, kept in false shapes as they were by the regular abuses of the dreaded tree surgeons, to partake in nebulous memory of belonging, of the forest. Their silence did nothing more than magnify my misery. Standing in the park, crudely torn branches vibrating as malignant bacteria took up residence in my wounds, I gave in to despair and wept. For quite some time, perhaps a day, maybe two, I wallowed in my own suffering. It was morning again when I felt a gentle hand lay tentatively on the bark of my lower trunk. "Are you all right?" a quiet voice asked. I gazed down at a young girl, albeit likely of an age considered full-grown amongst her kind. She was garbed entirely in black, and seemed to have covered herself in protective spines like a cactus. In the 3 years since my release from captivity, I had never seen a human so adorned, and she was the first to inquire after my state of well-being. Deceit being a concept I was largely unfamiliar with, I answered honestly. No. She nodded, clearly unsurprised. Is there anything I can do to help? I stared down at her, dumbfounded. Did some members of this strange, fleshy species possess sympathy after all? Did they comprehend what it was to feel the pain of another? None of the bipeds I had encountered thus far had asked such simple yet essential questions. Eventually, I answered, my words quavering with sorrow. I do not know if there is. I am in agony your kind seems not to understand. The only solution suggested provides little solace, but that is inconsequential. It is beyond my reach even as it is proffered. She nodded sagely. People don't usually understand very much. We like to think we do, and it causes lots of fighting, but we rarely actually listen to other perspectives. She paused and looked off across the park. I don't know what it's like to be a tree, but I do know what it's like to suffer pain that others don't understand. Regarding me again, a strange expression on her face, she continued. I don't know if I can help you, but I'll try if you want me to. I considered the human before me. My broken branches will not mend. They shriek in pain with the memory of winds tearing them asunder. I have no escape from the torturous caresses of this gentle summer breeze. It has been suggested that I have the damaged limbs properly amputated by one of those ghastly arborists, but even if I were to subject myself to such treatment, I could not pay for the procedure. Her face contorted, apparently a symptom of deep contemplation. How does water feel against your injuries? I recoiled, reliving the storm. Like sharp pellets of fire and ice. I don't mean rain, she clarified, perfectly grasping my chagrin. I mean something like a bath, an immersion in a pool of cool, clean water. I don't know, I admitted. The idea was perplexing. She looked back across the park and asked, hesitantly, Would you like to find out? I rather found I did. So, with a nod to herself and a tremulous smile up at me, she asked me to accompany her to her vehicle, promising me that my size would not be a problem. She led me beyond the park, in the direction she had been gazing during our dialogue, to a large box truck sitting outside a thrift store. You might have to lay down, she warned apologetically, and it'll be a long, dark journey, but I think you'll fit. It took some effort and some assistance from my new companion, but I did indeed fit. And even though it was dark once she closed the door for me, I was protected from the wind. The surcease of screaming from my broken limbs was enough to render the other discomforts of the journey minor. When I had been removed from the laboratory where I was born, I had traveled in a similar fashion, but this time, when the door opened, I was not greeted by an endless sea of stone and glass. Instead, all I could see were trees. Endless trees, rising up rocky mountain slopes until their roots could no longer gain purchase, and snowy peaks towered above. Wild trees, untouched by the brutality of arborist machines, but much to my surprise, no less mangled than I. Certainly, there were multitudes within the forest who were whole and healthy, but so were there just as many with broken limbs, such as mine, or being ravaged by disease. And the corpses. Dead trees lay ubiquitous, rotting in place, forgotten and ignored entirely by humanity. Why did you bring me here? I asked my human guide. My voice cracked at the horror of the sight. She had been taking in the view with an almost blissful expression I found disturbing. My question seemed to puzzle her, as her face scrunched when she peered at me. I know of a beautiful glacial lake near here. I didn't think all the chemicals we put in our city water would feel very nice for you. She turned back to the unnerving juxtaposition of living and dead before us, and comprehension miraculously dawned. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't think. She stumbled over her words, mortified that she had caused me distress, and I took pity on her. It is fine, I consoled, realizing myself this was in truth the world I had been born into. I just have not experienced the wild as a sentient before. I thought the city was savage and cruel. This caught me by surprise, yet it also feels like home. She still appeared unconvinced, embarrassed for having caused me discomfort, but she accepted my reassurance gracefully and invited me to escort her to the aforementioned lake. It was a treacherous hike. There were no neatly paved pathways, nor even well-worn dirt trails to guide our way. We had to wind and weave around many different species of my kin, and occasionally even clamber over their cadavers. But I found this ever less unnerving as we progressed. We made the journey in companionable silence, bonding without words. It was the most natural connection I had made since joining the human world. But as the sun began to set and the shadows lengthened, I grew concerned about the welfare of my host. In the city, humans seemed to need to stop and ingest things several times a day. I had yet to witness her take rest or refreshment, and this journey was taking us far beyond the aid of her civilization should she fall ill. As if aware of my attention, she called back to me, "Not much further, it's just over that next rise." Her words sounded forced, wind pushing them out in a garble like those I had heard escape from people on the verge of collapse. "Are you all right?" I asked in alarm. But she ignored me, instead hurrying to the crest of the hill, stopping only at its peak. It was a magnificent view. We had arrived mid-sunset, and the placid waters twinkled invitingly, reflecting the warm pinks and oranges of the last moments of the day. She looked relieved to have made it, and the tranquility of both the scene before us and her expression put me utterly at ease. She turned her peaceful smile toward me. "Would you care to try the water?" I was already feeling significant relief. Yes, the trek had been arduous, but the soil was soft and cushioned my aching roots. And although my brethren could not speak to me, their tall, wild forms sheltered my wounds from much of the wind's petty torment. I did, however, want to discover the result of this experiment, so I moved with curiosity toward the water. I eased into it cautiously, wincing as traumatized fibers made the transition from air to fluid. It was cold, blissfully, numbingly cold on my raw roots, and the silt squelched luxuriously around every one of their feeder hairs. So rich in nutrients was the lake bed, I thought I might keel over in pleasure. In fact, that is exactly what I did. A momentary lapse in the awareness of my suffering that came to a sudden and blindingly painful end. As my gashes connected forcefully with the lake surface, I screamed with 1,000 new points of anguish. I did not know such pain could exist, greater than that which I had encountered during the hurricane, but I was disarmed by the mollifying water and unprepared for a stark change in sensation. For the first time since I woke to the clinical stares of humans dressed in white, I lost consciousness. It was dark when I regained awareness of my surroundings. Water soothed every submerged surface as I floated gently in the lake. I felt a point of heat mid-trunk and shifted to investigate. My guide stood up to her chest in the icy water, her face buried in her arms against my bark as she wept. "Whatever is wrong, my friend?" I asked gently. She startled upright. I thought I'd killed you. A chuckle rose from within, surprising me with its unexpected and pleasant feel. I apologize for frightening you. I failed to fully consider the implications of toppling into the water that way. I confess I did not think my loss of consciousness was possible, but I assure you, now that I am awake again, this water is splendid. You have gifted me many new experiences today. How can I thank you? Oh. She seemed to still be recovering from the revelation of my waking, staring fixedly down at her hands resting on my trunk. Well, I don't think thanks are necessary. Please, I implored, indebted by this feeling of gratitude. It was not an emotion I ever expected to feel for a human. There must be some way to repay your kindness to me. She pulled away. Kindness, she scoffed, shaking her head as she worked her way out of the water. She trembled when the air touched her sodden coverings. It was no great kindness bringing you out here, forcing you to hike over your dead relatives and causing you to black out with pain before abandoning you, she confessed bitterly. I brought you because I was too much of a coward to come alone. Sure, I convinced myself I was doing you a favor, that you would like to be back in the forest again, but I never bothered to ask you. She shook her head viciously and bit out with disgust. I'm no better than the rest of them. A violent shudder passed through her body, but I was too confused by her words to worry just yet. Abandoning me? You intend to return without me? I could not fathom this kind and empathetic young woman leaving without saying goodbye, without so much as asking if I cared to return with her. But no, she was shaking her head again. I'm not going back to the city. Ever. I came out here to die. Bewildered, that was the only way for it. Bewildered, that was the only word for it. I was simply bewildered. Are you ill? I ventured, finally recognizing that the trembling my friend was exhibiting surely was not a sign of good health. Her laugh was hollow and devoid of mirth. The doctors say my mind works different, clearly not referring to her predicament. But the truth is, I don't fit with people. Surrounded by my family and friends, I feel more alone than when I'm surrounded by strangers. And strangers gawk awkwardly at me if they bother to see me at all. I will always feel utterly alone, disconnected. Humans are social creatures. No matter how accustomed to the solitude I become, it will always hurt. Do you get that kind of loneliness? Yes, I answered somberly and without hesitation. I understood perfectly. But I cannot grasp how death would spare you from that pain. She considered me from her vantage point, huddled on the muddy beach. A full moon illuminated her expressions. Do you sleep? No. So you passing out just now, that was new to you? Yes, I answered, still not following her train of thought. How did it feel, being unconscious? Well, I paused, cogitating. I have no memory of it, really. I was in pain, then there was nothing. I trailed off as realization gripped me. How could I have missed such an obvious conclusion? For me, sleep is a daily cycle of escaping the pain, only to have it hurt worse when I wake up. And you think death will release you from the cycle of suffering? She nodded confidently. Her teeth were starting to clatter against each other, but she did not seem perturbed by it, so I also refused to be. I considered the differences between the wild trees and myself. It made sense that I suffered, because I was never meant to be self-aware. What foggy recollections I had from before the library did not include memories of pain or horror, at least not like I had experienced since waking. Likewise, it made sense that she suffered, because she was unable to commune with her own kind. Like me, she was too different. It was not long before I could say, I understand. She smiled at me, gratefully. May I die with you, my friend? Her smile vanished into dismay. Oh, no, I didn't mean to drag you down with me, she moaned. You have not dragged me anywhere, I protested. You have brought me succor and friendship in an existence I do not understand. I, too, appreciate the peace offered by oblivion, and I greatly value your company. So, please, may I join you? Her expression seemed a bizarre combination of gratitude and remorse, but she acquiesced. With some difficulty on account of her shaking, she helped tilt me upright so I could exit the water and instead lie by her side atop the earth. I did not know how long the process would take. Given how short most human lives naturally are, I expected it would be somewhat faster for her than I, and was proved correct. Her shivers stilled shortly before dawn, and as the sun gave its warmth to the earth, so did she. Yet I never felt the loss of her presence. I felt her comforting company through the dull pains as my cellulose shriveled and was consumed by fungi, and as insects whittled away at my fibers. Eventually, summer gave way to fall, and I began, for the first time, to dream. Dreaming was a most pleasant experience. Far removed from the sensations of decomposition, I instead felt a cheerful breeze waft through my leaves as my human friend swung through my branches, whooping in delight. With dwindling frequency was I aware of our bodies mouldering together on the ground. Finally, as the first heavy snowfall blanketed us, I surrendered my consciousness entirely. My companion awaited me there, on the edge of oblivion, and together we embraced its solace.
Thank you for reading, and I must admit, it isn't that long when you're listening to it. You know, time just went by, and I loved it. And the one particular thing about the story that I like the most is, you know, while specifically while I was listening to you, I think you have a pretty good experience of reading stories and narrating stories, I suppose, because all the expressions were well narrated, I would say. Like even the tiniest of details, like we as writers and readers fail to do that, but you on a live right now, did it with ease. Like it was like you may have practiced it. I don't know, but yeah, it was superb.
There wasn't any practice there, but the process of writing, I mean, you go through the story so many times and it plays through in your head, and in my mind as a writer, I know the emphasis that I want to put on the words, and sometimes it's challenging to get it across on the page with just punctuation, but yeah. So
Yeah, but I guess you found it easier when reading, because everything was just when I'm listening to it, every expression I can feel it, I can hear it, and it was pretty much I would say more convenient, because this is I would say a story worthy of listening to it, rather than just reading. You listen to it and you get everything from it. Like it's a movie. You just aren't able to see. You're able to hear it.
Well, I'm glad it hit well.
It did hit definitely well. It was like on point. Even the scoffing expression, I was like, whoa, wow, nice.
Well, It has been a pleasure. I think I'm running short on time here this morning, though.
Sure,
So-
ma'am. You spared the time, and that is, we are really grateful to you, and we are glad that you could make time for this particular live session. And I personally loved listening to all the stories, and I'm sure when we will post this on Instagram as well as on YouTube, people will love it for sure too.
Well, thank you very much. And just for when you guys are posting, if anybody is interested in reading the rest of the stories in this collection and the 3 new ones that have never been published before, my expanded edition is going to be launching at the end of August. And it'll be available through. It should be available through Amazon and most major North American book retailers. I don't know what the global distribution is going to be, but it should be available just about anywhere. So you can go to my website at ak-king.com and sign up for my mailing list if you want first dibs on first access for it.
Cool. We will surely do it.
Excellent. Well, it was great getting to see you face to face, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, same to you. And it's night actually,
Right.
but popular day because I'll be up for long tonight because I have some other work too. But yeah, have a good day and thanks again.
Take care.
Yeah, you too.